Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill. Welcome back to my vegetable garden. Do you enjoy growing tomatoes? I sure do. But do you occasionally have problems with insect pests or maybe certain types of plant disorders? Well, those are the topics for today's video. Now before I get started, I'll give you a quick introduction in case you're new to my videos. I live in Spokane, Washington, which is about 300 miles east of Seattle. I have written 2 gardening books called the Vegetable Garden Pest Handbook and the Vegetable Garden Problem Solver Handbook. I've been a master gardener for over 20 years. I'm the longtime garden columnist for our newspaper, the Spokesman Review, and I'm passionate about vegetable gardening and especially organic vegetable gardening. So let's get started. As you probably already know, there are quite a few different types of insects that can bother your vegetable plants. There are also quite a few disorders. And when I say disorder, I'm not referring to a plant disease, but rather it's something that happened because of the weather, let's say, maybe something you did or didn't do for your plants, and that's the type of thing I'm talking about. Now, I didn't want this video to be 3 hours long while I talked about all of the different potential problems that can arise with growing tomatoes. So I just wanted to focus on a couple of insects, especially one that I'm having a problem with right now, and a few disorders that I think everybody has seen no matter where they garden. Let's talk about hornworms first. Did you know there are actually 2 types of hornworms that can bother tomato plants? The first one is the tobacco hornworm, and the second is the tomato hornworm. So how do you tell the difference between them? Well, the tobacco hornworm has angled lines on their sides, and tomato hornworms have V-shaped lines on their sides. So that is the main difference. Now the weird thing in our vegetable garden is that we haven't seen them here for years. We used to get them every single year like clockwork, and they did so much damage. But for some reason, something changed. I don't know if it has to do with the climate or what, but for some reason we don't get them here anymore. And I'm certainly not complaining. The adult form of hornworms is a moth. For tomato hornworms, it's the 5-spotted hawk moth, and for tobacco hornworms, it's the Carolina sphinx moth. The weird thing about these 2 caterpillars is that you never see them until they're huge. They're also very well camouflaged. So what you want to look for is dramatically chewed branches and brown or black droppings underneath the damage. As a matter of fact, that's usually how you will find the worms. So how do you control hornworms? Well, the first and easiest way to control them is by hand picking. And I know they're big and disgusting, so wear some gloves and just clip off the branch that they're on and dispose of them. Another thing that you can do when you see that you do have the hornworms is to use a spray that is organic. It's called Bt Kerstaki. So Bt stands for Bacillus thuringiensis. It is a bacteria that is harmless to humans but deadly for caterpillars. So you would spray the foliage. When they eat the foliage, it causes them to die. So those are really the 2 best ways for dealing with them. The second insect I wanted to discuss today might be one that you're not familiar with, and that's why I chose it, especially since I am dealing with them this year. Do you see the little flecks on these tomato leaves? They're primarily on leaves that are lower on the plants. And I noticed them maybe about 6 weeks ago, and I thought, what's causing that? And you know, you just get busy, and it wasn't like it was a huge problem, and so I didn't take the time to investigate, which was a mistake on my part. Yes, I do make mistakes. So I used my magnifying glass, and I could see there was something on the leaves. I wasn't sure exactly what. And then I went into our Master Gardener plant clinic and looked at the leaves under their microscope and thought, oh my gosh, it's thrips. So let me show you what they've done on the bean plants, and then we'll talk more about what they are. I'll show you what they look like and how to control them. So this is what the thrips damage looks like on our pole bean leaves. That looks pretty nasty, doesn't it? This photo shows you what thrips look like, and they are tiny. They are just about a 1/16 of an inch long. And what this photo is all about is that I had trapped some, which we'll talk about more in a moment, and knocked them into a bucket of soapy water. And you can see they are just the tiniest things, so of course they would escape your notice. One other way you might notice thrips is if you like to grow roses and you notice that some of the flower buds are a little bit deformed or they just don't open normally, take a white sheet of paper and take that rosebud and just tap it over the sheet of paper. And if you see what looks like a bunch of tiny little black lines, those are thrips. They are just tiny. So here's what their life cycle involves. They overwinter in plant debris. After they mate in the spring, the females lay eggs inside flowers or new foliage. The larvae hatch, feed on the foliage, and they go through 2 instars. Instars are stages of an insect's life cycle. Then they drop down into the soil. They go through 2 more instars. They develop wings, and they emerge as adults to start the cycle all over again. While I was researching thrips, I learned that they are particularly prevalent during hot, dry weather, and that is definitely what we've been experiencing for the last few months. The reason they are a problem is because they really impact a plant's ability to grow and produce. And that's because their damage makes it hard for the leaves to conduct photosynthesis, and that's how they collect and store energy from the sun. So how can you control thrips? Well, that's very challenging, but I've got some ideas for you. One thing you can do to catch thrips is to make or buy blue sticky traps. And the way that works is they are attracted to the color of blue. There are a lot of insects that are attracted to yellow, so it's nice that they're attracted to a different color. And if you decide to make your own, you just need to get some heavy-duty paper or like a plastic folder for a binder and cut it into a size maybe about like this big. And you want to paint on it either Vaseline or something that's called Tangle Trap or Tangle Foot. That's a product you can buy in garden centers. And what happens is they're attracted to the color and they get stuck in that substance. And so that works quite well. You can also make traps with rolled up newspaper. And all you do is just roll them up and place them on the surface of the bed where you're having a problem with thrips. I usually find I need to wrap a rubber band around these so they don't open up. And what happens is they hide in here during the day. Then what I can do is take that bucket of soapy water and just tap this on the inner part of the rim of the bucket and knock them into the water. You can also use cardboard to do this. You want to use the corrugated cardboard that has that extra layer in the middle. And you can make squares of it and just place it again on the surface of the soil in the bed where you're having problems. The following morning, you can tap those on the side of the bucket and get them that way. Other options include knocking the thrips off the plants with a jet of water from your hose. You can add beneficial nematodes to the soil of the bed. And if you're not familiar with them, they are microscopic roundworms that target different types of insects while they're in their soil-dwelling part of their life cycle. And of course, thrips do spend time down in the soil. So that is a possibility. You can also spray the plants with spinosad, insecticidal soaps, neem, or other types of organic products. And with all of those, always remember to read the label and follow the directions to the letter. If you have experienced a lot of thrips activity in your garden this year, it's really important that you clean up the affected plant debris at the end of the growing season so you aren't leaving host plants for them to overwinter in. It's a way to break their life cycle. Other crops that they are attracted to, in addition to tomatoes and beans, are peas, which are another legume, cucurbits, so that would be cucumbers, melons, pumpkins, and squash, garlic, onions, and peppers. Now let's talk about a few plant disorders that you can encounter with your tomato crop. And again, it's not a disease, so it's not caused by fungi, bacteria, or viruses. It is actually something that maybe is from weather conditions or something that we did as gardeners, not to make you feel bad, that adversely impacted your crop. So I want to start with blossom end rot. And I have a full video on it. I encourage you to watch it because it is packed with information. But today I want to give you the big picture as to what it is, what causes it, and how to prevent it. Now I have to tell you, I think that blossom end rot is the most misunderstood plant disorder that a gardener can encounter. And so I'm hoping that between my full video on it and today's explanation, you will understand better what causes it. So this is what blossom end rot looks like. I'm happy to say that I'm having minimal problems with this disorder this year because I've really stayed on top of the watering during our heat wave, and that is the key. So tomato fruits require calcium in order to develop properly. Calcium is in the soil. So how does it get up to the fruits? Well, if the soil has enough moisture, the plant's roots can move it from the soil up into the plants. If you are inconsistent about watering, the roots aren't able to move that calcium. Most everybody has plenty of calcium in their soil. Again, the problem is inconsistent watering. This disorder cannot be prevented by adding more calcium to the soil, or eggshells, or Tums and acids, or Epsom salts, or milk products, and so on. If you water your plants consistently, the plants and the fruits will do great. Let's talk about fruit cracking. Sometimes the skin of tomatoes cracks open. This often happens when it's been very dry and then you suddenly get a rainstorm. Or you do a whole bunch of watering. I know you just can't catch a break, right? This makes the flesh swell, but the skin can't expand enough so it cracks open. If there isn't any mold present, you can just trim off the cracked area and eat the rest of the tomato. If you have a rainstorm coming, and your tomatoes have just started turning color, which is known as the breaker stage, go ahead and pick them and take them indoors to finish ripening on your kitchen counters. The next disorder is called physiological leaf roll. You probably have never heard of that, but I can guarantee you've seen it. This is where the leaves roll upward. It's usually in response to either cold weather early in the season, maybe from planting your tomatoes too early, and sometimes from excessive heat. Scientists don't fully understand this mechanism, but they believe the rolling is a way for plants to conserve moisture. The tomatoes will be fine, and when the temperatures return to normal, the leaves will often straighten out a bit. I should mention that two other causes of leaf rolling are certain plant diseases and herbicide damage. That's where you need to closely examine the plant and see if there are other signs such as mottling on the leaves or twisted leaves. The last plant disorder I wanted to talk about today is called Sunscald. Have you ever seen pale, dry areas on tomato fruits? This is known as Sunscald. It's essentially a sunburn of the fruit. It usually happens when the plant has suddenly lost a lot of leaves. This might be due to excessive pruning or from removing diseased leaves. What happens is that exposes the developing fruits to more light than they can handle. If either of those situations apply to your tomato plants, I would recommend suspending a lightweight, maybe 30% shade cloth over the plant and give them some protection from the intense light. It's also important to make sure you're watering the plants consistently. I know, here I go again. I hope this information was helpful and maybe solved a mystery or two for you. As you probably know, I am the author of the Vegetable Garden Pest Handbook, which covers the most commonly encountered damaging insect pests in the vegetable garden. Things like Colorado potato beetles, flea beetles, harlequin bugs, Japanese beetles, and stink bugs that can also cause a lot of problems for your tomato plants. If you'd like to get a signed copy of the book, just drop me an email at susan@susansinthegarden.com. Also, my newest book, The Vegetable Garden Problem Solver Handbook, will be out in February 2023. In it, I cover all sorts of plant disorders, like we were discussing today, plant diseases, and ways to keep a wide variety of critters out of your garden. You can pre-order it now, and if you do, just forward your order confirmation to me, and I'll send you a link to my special bonus content, 12 vegetable crops you should add to your garden. Thanks so much for watching today, everybody. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the big thumbs up. I'll see you next week. Happy gardening. Oh, and I bet you want to know what these berries are. These are from a native plant. It is a shrub called American cranberry bush. See you later.